Hey guys, what's up? This is Meathead Mikkel, and today I want to show you the pretty much completed T6 Tempest Rush Monk Speed Farm build. And it's going to be kind of a hybrid build of elements, primarily focusing on the Flurry Rune of Tempest Rush for basically one-shotting elites, and the Firestorm of Sweeping Wind to spread your Efficacious Toxin and Pain Enhancer gems. So we're going to go ahead and just clear out a part of this rift, or the rest of this rift, and then we'll talk about the build, the gear, the Paragon, that sort of thing. And you're going to be moving because you're also going to be using the War Staff of General Quang, you're going to be moving around 90% move speed, which is pretty awesome, pretty much the entire time. And then build up a few stacks, come on to these elites, boom, one-shot elite packs. Unless they're outside of your 15-yard range. Flurry has a 15-yard radius where it explodes. And because you're going to be using Pain Enhancer, and especially going to be sometimes Tempest Rushing through some pretty big packs, resource management is going to be an issue. There we go, elite down. But that's why you have Epiphany. You basically just have to kind of make sure that you rotate your Epiphany cooldown as you run out of Spirit. Then you got elites. Elites are dead, except for that one because he was out of range, but that's okay. And on an open map like this with the Rift Guardian, you want to try and actually, if possible, run around and just get some stacks. I'm going to demo what this looks like for you guys. Well, actually, I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm going to run out of Spirit, but you want to try and get as many stacks as possible before you pop them. It doesn't really matter. I mean, you could just do a few stacks at a time, but it is possible to, once you kind of gear out properly, to one-shot the Rift Guardian once you're at 100 stacks. And that's actually what I'm going to try to do right now. I'm specifically not trying to kill him right now. I want to max my stacks. I can't actually see him. I have too many buffs going on because I'm using a set, but I should be able to actually finish him off with this next hit. So where is he? Right here? Okay. Oh, he was immune. Okay, well that was a little bit of a fail. But basically you can see the burst, so it's like it's a steady damage and then boom, burst damage. It's kind of the same concept as one-shotting the elites. You just do it on a Rift Guardian, but, you know, for example, the Skeleton King, I couldn't do it because he was immune when I actually stopped Tempest Rushing. But this guy is going to go down pretty quick. And I'm going to demo this, going to clear out a little bit more of this so you guys can kind of see the playstyle a little better. Basically just run. Once you tag the first pack, you should be able to always have your Mantra of Conviction Annihilation buff going. Come in here, try to round up the elites. You can't always do that. I'm not using double Unity, actually, it's not necessary. I'm using Ring of Grandeur and a Cold Stone Jordan, which I think is a better setup for the purposes of T6, and then you just run through. And I should have a lot of stacks now, so if I run into another elite pack here, I should be able to take him down with basically one hit, but it doesn't look like I'm going to, so that's unfortunate because I'm at 84 stacks. But let's look at the damage numbers real quick. That was pretty intense. That was several billion. And you do hit somewhere around like 4 billion or so. And actually, I could probably demo this for you guys with this, although it's going to be a power pylon. It's going to be a little bit stronger than usual. But it is basically one-shotting elite packs, so that's the general concept. Pretty quick clear. And let's look at the gear and kind of the thought process behind this. So first of all, follower doesn't really matter. I just have my Templar with some cooldown reductions, some crowd control, some more crowd control, just some damage reduction, and some more crowd control when he blocks, and just some survivability. T6, they don't really die anyway. And then for my Paragon points, max move speed, then the rest in dex. Crit chance first, followed by crit damage because you want more procs on your Pain Enhancer, and then defense, either armor or resist all first, doesn't really matter, and then life percentage and life regen last. Utility, hands down, resource cost reduction first, followed by area damage, then life on hit. Your skills are going to look like this. So left click, unfortunately you can't really put anything useful on left click. It sucks, but you kind of have to get used to starting to Tempest Rush by holding down shift and then releasing your shift button but you got to make sure you don't release it too early, otherwise you'll end Tempest Rushing, you'll stop Tempest Rushing, and then your Flurry thing, this little globe thing explodes, and you kind of missed all your stacks. So all these stacks that I'm getting right now, you can see them down here. I'm just going to lose them if I do it prematurely. So that's kind of like the play style that you have to get adjusted to in this build. I'm going for Epiphany, Desert Shroud, because I'm not using double Unity, so it helps. You could go for Insights if for some reason you have a lot of Spirit, like as secondary rolls on your gear, and you want the extra Spirit gen just to fill you up like all the way. And if you decide to actually spec for more Spirit. But generally speaking, I want to take Desert Shroud because of the damage reduction. And Sweeping Wind, you're going to be using Firestorm because this is going to spread your 2 gems. If you're really, really low on Spirit Gen, you can go for Inner Storm, but this is going to be your best bet because, again, this is basically for trash killing, because when you're Tempest Rushing, everything in this radius, which is 1 yard smaller than your Flurry explosion, is going to get tagged. So everything here is going to get tagged by both of my damage gems, and they're going to die pretty quick. Then here, I tried using actually Breath of Heaven with Blazing Wrath for a little bit more damage, but I felt that it was not really necessary. However, what is necessary, and is very helpful sometimes, especially if you run into a bunch of elite packs in T6, like all together, high density, and they're like Molten, Reflect Damage, got a bunch of ground effects, you don't want to just have to run out of there because you're about to die. So popping Serenity is actually perfect because it makes you immune to damage, and you could get a few more stacks up, then stop. Everything goes boom, and then you can get out of there. Also, for those of you who are wondering if you should take Dashing Strike with, let's say, Way of the Falling Star, absolutely not, because it's going to... You want to be constantly Tempest Rushing. You want to be constantly building up your Flurry stacks so that you can one-shot elite packs. And then Mystic Ally, Fire Ally. Again, if you're really low on resources, you could go for Air Ally with Crutus Boots. This is probably going to be what you want to do instead of, you don't really want to... go for a different Sweeping Wind. I would go for Air Ally if you're really low, and then a Mantra of Conviction for Annihilation for the extra move speed, because you're pretty much always going to have this 30% increased move speed buff. And I'm going to be going for Unity, and this is going to give me a 15%, or it is going to give me a 20% buff because of my double Ancient, or no, it's... Yeah, anyway, Unity, so you're going to get extra damage from your Fire Allies, and then Fleet-Footed. Here you could go for Chant of Resonance. So you could go Chant of Resonance and Exalted Soul. I used to do this. It's going to basically remove all of your Spirit Gen issues because you'd never see your Spirit going low like it is on mine, but I wanted a little bit more move speed and then momentum for the extra damage, and then I would prioritize actually Exalted Soul over Chant of Resonance because you're already going to be kind of Spirit starved. You don't really want to spam your mantra, but having the extra Spirit is going to make this last longer, and ideally, especially if you have a little bit of cooldown reduction, as soon as this gets like almost to 0, then you pop your Epiphany, fill back up, then that goes off cooldown, gets low again, you pop it again, so on and so forth. Now, gear-wise, I have the world's worst Ring of Royal Grandeur, but don't worry about it. Bane of the Powerful, and again, I tried Taiguk with this. I tried Taiguk, Bane of the Powerful, and Bane of the Trapped for just a ton of extra damage on your actual Tempest Rush, and it's still not as good. You still want those because you're still not going to be able to one-shot all the trash mobs, but with Toxin and FK's Toxin and Pain Enhancer gems, you can. So that's why I want to stick with that. And then for the purposes of T6, now in Greater Rift's Bane of the Trapped is going to be better, but for the purposes of T6, I think Bane of the Powerful is going to win out because you're always going to have this buff up, and it's just until you get like really, really high rank of Bane of the Trapped, like we're talking like rank 50 plus, Bane of the Powerful is, especially if you don't have a ton of elite damage, which I don't. I actually have 26% elite damage, but especially if you don't have a lot of elite damage, like you're not using a Furnace, for example, then this is going to be very, very beneficial for you. It's basically roughly a 35% overall damage increase against elites. Then I'm going to be using Sunuko Gloves. Ideally here I would actually not have Vitality. I'd probably have Resource Cost Reduction just to make life a little bit easier for T6 purposes. And then these are kind of the rolls you want on your Sunuko Shoulders. And then I'm using Enos Helm with Crit Chance and Spirit Gen. You'll notice I don't have any extra Tempest Rush damage. It's not really necessary, I don't think, and Spirit Gen is what you really want. And I am going to be using the full Enos set. and for extra spirit generation, free sweeping wind. And then I'm going to be using Hexing Pants. This is kind of a better setup than, let's say, like not using a Ring of Grandeur or using, let's say, like a Witching Hour. You really want to use the Hexing Pants because the overall damage buff is going to be like insane. So this is basically the mandatory choice here, and then Crudus Boots also mandatory choice for double fire allies for a 20% damage boost. And then I'm going to be using a Cold Stone of Jordan for, well, more boom on the flurry. So this is kind of what you want. Not the ideal rolls, but you kind of get the idea. And then I'm going to be using Sunwuko Amulet. You have to use this. Unfortunately, mine's not very good, but you can still see that even with this not like perfect gear, far from perfect gear, you can still do T6 very, very quickly. And this is kind of the other crown jewel, I think, for any kind of flurry build, and this goes for the T6 version and the Greater Rift version, which is a little bit different. I think these are best in slot bracers, and the reason I say that, at least for now until patch 2.2, and the reason I say that is because there are so many mobs that will knock you back and stun you, and they will end your Tempest rushing prematurely, and so all those stacks that you've been building up for an elite pack, you're not going to have them, and so the elite killing power that is what makes Tempest Rush Flurry so strong, you're going to lose that. So I think these are kind of the best ones you want. So anyway, guys, I know I talked a little bit more about this one, but I really wanted to explain my thought process. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Thumbs up if you like the video, sub if you haven't. Be on the lookout for a solo Greater Rift progression coming soon, and I'll see you guys then.